The first thing Clay said when I walked through the door was, "Well, look who finally got a weekend off from his little hobby business." I stood there holding the cooler in one hand, Eli's bag slung over my shoulder, and forced a tight laugh. My back was already throbbing from the 6-hour drive. I nodded, didn't say anything, just set the cooler down near the fridge and took a deep breath. "My name's Nate. I'm 59 now, but this happened when I was 44. Back when I still thought maybe, somehow, Marissa's family would come around. Every July, they all gathered at her dad's lake cabin in northern Michigan. Same old crew. Her parents, her sister, Clay, and whatever girl he was dragging around that year. That summer, it was Bree. Perky, tan, probably 15 years younger than him. She waved at me when I came in, but even that felt forced. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Marissa had driven up early with her parents to help set up. That meant I was on solo duty getting Eli there. He was 12 at the time, all legs and energy. I didn't want him to miss the trip, even if it meant being the damn punching bag for another year. "Come on, Dad," he'd said back home. "It won't be so bad. Just hang out with me." I wanted to say no. Work was a mess. My shop had just lost its best client. I'd been waking up every night with nerve pains shooting down my right leg. I was exhausted, tired of smiling through Clay's jokes, tired of the eye rolls, tired of pretending I fit in with people who clearly wished I didn't show up. But Eli? He was the only reason I packed the truck and drove us into the pines, past those hand-painted private property signs, straight into a house full of people who barely acknowledge I existed. As I brought in the last of our stuff, Marissa was already on the deck with a glass of wine. "Hey," she said, barely glancing my way. No hug, no smile, just, "Hey." Inside, Clay was in full performance mode, loud, cracking jokes with their dad, tossing a football in the living room like a frat boy stuck in 2003. I ducked out fast, headed down to the dock with Eli. I already knew how the weekend would go, but I still showed up for my kid. Dinner the first night was exactly what I expected. Steak, corn, and just enough sarcasm to drown in. Clay walked in shirtless like he was allergic to fabric, cracked open a beer, and plopped down across from me at the table. "Damn, Nate, didn't know we were bringing samurais to the lake," he said, pointing at my hair, which I'd tied back to keep the sawdust and sweat out. "It's not a man bun," I muttered. Clay leaned toward Bree. "You'd think with all that woodwork he'd have arms by now." She gave a tight smile and looked away. Marissa laughed, not a big one, more like the kind you give to keep things smooth. Eli was sitting next to me, poking at his green beans like they might bite. He didn't look up. He never did when this started. Marissa's dad chuckled through a mouthful of food. "At least you're not talking politics this year," he said to Clay, like the jokes were some kind of service to the table. I pushed my plate back. "I'm going to go check the tackle box before it gets dark." "Of course you are," Clay said, grinning. "Got a big Etsy order coming in tomorrow?" I didn't answer, just walked out, biting the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. The next morning, I got up early to avoid the kitchen crowd. Eli was already on the dock, trying to untangle his fishing line. I grabbed a thermos of coffee, made my way down, and knelt next to him. He grinned. "It's stuck again." I took the pole and started working the knot out. My hands were shaking slightly, not from nerves, just pain and tension that never seemed to go away. Then I heard footsteps. "Clay, look at this. Father-son bonding time. Cute." I kept my eyes on the knot. "Can we not do this right now?" He ignored me, walked right up, slapped me hard between the shoulder blades. I jolted forward and caught myself on the dock edge. "Jesus, Clay." "Relax, man. It's a lake. You're supposed to get wet." That afternoon, I told Marissa what happened. I wasn't mad, just tired. I said, "He shoved me while I was kneeling. My back's already a mess, and he thinks it's funny." She was brushing sand off her legs, didn't even look up. "He's always been like that, Nate. Don't take it personally." "That's the thing," I said. "He's always been like that. And you all let him." She sighed. Can we not do this here? I looked at her. The same woman I'd fought to build a life with. Same woman who used to stand up for me when we were younger. Now, she was just trying to get through the weekend without a scene. I walked out onto the porch and sat down hard, wincing. My lower back was screaming. Eli came out a minute later, holding 2 sodas. You okay? He asked, eyes serious. Yeah, I said, just tired of pretending. He handed me a soda and sat beside me. We didn't talk after that, didn't need to. But right then I knew. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't weak. They just didn't care. The next morning started out quiet. Marissa and her parents went into town for supplies. Clay was showing Bree how to bait a hook like he was hosting a damn fishing show. I took the chance to be alone. I poured myself a cup of coffee and walked down to the end of the dock. Eli was already out in the kayak, paddling in lazy circles. The sun was still low, the lake glassy and calm. For once, there was no noise, no sarcasm, no Clay. Until there was. I didn't hear him at first, just the crunch of bare feet on wood behind me. Come on, he said. You're the only one who hasn't played the game. I didn't turn. Not interested. Dude, he said, stepping up beside me. You just close your eyes, jump off the dock, try to land on the floaty. It's not rocket science. I said no. He tilted his head, mocking. What, you afraid you'll mess up your hair? Back off, Clay. He didn't. Next thing I knew, 2 hands hit me hard from the side. But I didn't fall into the water. I went sideways. My lower back slammed straight into the steel cleat, the kind bolted to the dock to tie off boats. I felt a crack, not a pop, a deep vibrating crack that echoed up through my spine. Then my head hit the decking, hard. I didn't even have time to brace. The dock blurred, the sky spun, then everything stopped. I couldn't move, couldn't feel my legs. Just this searing, sharp pain ripping through my lower back, spreading like fire down both sides. Clay stood over me, still laughing. Relax, man. I barely pushed you. I couldn't speak. My jaw wouldn't move right. My arms felt disconnected. I blinked hard, trying to stay conscious, but the sunlight above me kept fading in and out like a broken lamp. Then I heard Eli yelling, Dad! Dad! His kayak hit the dock with a thud, and he scrambled up, wet feet slapping against the wood. What happened? What did you do to him? Clay stepped back, voice suddenly louder, nervous. He slipped. I was just messing around. He tripped or something. I wanted to speak. I couldn't. My mouth felt full of gravel. Eli knelt beside me, panicked. Dad, can you hear me? I blinked once. That's all I could manage. Somewhere behind us, Bree was calling for Marissa. Voices started shouting. Footsteps echoed across the dock. Marissa appeared seconds later, hair in a ponytail, holding her phone like she didn't know what to do with it. What happened? She asked. Clay jumped in fast. He fell. I think he slipped on that wet patch by the cleat. Eli stood up and shoved him. You pushed him. I saw you. He told you to stop. Hey, Clay snapped, stepping forward. Watch yourself, kid. I could see all of this happening from the ground, like I was watching a movie. I still couldn't feel my legs, just this dull, sickening pressure down my spine. Marissa crouched beside me, squinting. Nate, can you talk? I tried. Nothing came out. He needs help, Eli shouted. He needs a doctor. Maybe we should just wait a minute, Marissa said, still frozen. It might be a spasm. He's had back pain before. I didn't mean to, okay? Clay mumbled, suddenly quiet. I didn't think he'd actually get hurt. Bree looked pale. He said no, Clay. I heard him say no. I stared at the sky, still flat on my back, the heat of the dock soaking into my shoulder blades, the pain buzzing so loud it drowned everything else. Clay didn't say another word. Marissa finally moved. Let's just get him inside, she said, waving at her dad and brother like this was some drunk guy passed out at a barbecue. Help me lift him. Eli blocked them. No! Don't touch him. We need an ambulance. No one moved. I mean it, Eli shouted, his voice cracking. Leave him alone. I finally managed to let out a single sound, not a word, just a grunt. But it was enough. Everyone stopped talking. I don't remember how I got off that dock. I don't remember being carried. Just flashes. Eli holding my hand, Clay's face pale and quiet. Marissa's voice somewhere in the background saying, "It's not that bad." But it was, and I knew, as they laid me out on the pull-out couch in the game room, that something had broken for good. They laid me on the pull-out couch like a sack of laundry. No pillow, no blanket, just dropped me there and left the lights on. Marissa leaned over me, wine glass in hand, and said, "You probably just tweaked something. Try to sleep it off." "I need urgent care," I whispered. My mouth was dry. My spine felt like it had a live wire running through it. "You'll be fine by morning," she said, already walking away. I stared up at the ceiling fan, spinning slow and uneven. My right foot was completely numb. I kept wiggling my toes just to make sure they still moved. They didn't. Eli came in around midnight, brought me a glass of water and a granola bar. He sat next to me on the floor, quiet. "You okay?" he asked. I shook my head once. "I need to go to the hospital." "I know," he said. "I'll talk to Mom again." He didn't leave until I told him to get some sleep. That night was the longest of my life. I couldn't roll over. I couldn't sit up. Every breath came with a dull, sharp echo in my spine. At one point, I thought I'd piss myself, but it was just sweat soaking through the sheet. By morning, nobody else had come in. I could hear them in the kitchen, bacon frying, coffee mugs clinking, Clay's voice louder than anyone's. Like nothing happened. Eli popped in around 8. "She says it's just inflammation." Said her dad's back locks up sometimes too. "I'm not her dad," I growled. "I know," he said, looking away. A couple hours later, I tried to stand. I shouldn't have. I pushed myself halfway up with my arms shaking. My legs gave out the second they took weight. I dropped straight to the floor. Hips smacked hard. Head bounced off the side of the coffee table. My vision went dark for a second, just a rush of heat and static. Then I heard it, Clay's voice from the kitchen. "He's really milking this one, huh?" I tried to yell, but all that came out was a weak groan. My arms were shaking under me. I felt like I was being crushed from the inside. Marissa walked in a minute later, saw me sprawled on the floor, drenched in sweat, face smashed against the carpet. She didn't rush. She didn't gasp. She just narrowed her eyes and said, "Are you doing this in front of Eli?" "Seriously?" "I can't move," I said. "I can't feel my damn legs." She rubbed her temples. "You're being dramatic. I need help. You need to calm down." That's when I gave up. I grabbed the cordless phone off the table and dialed Laura, my assistant back at the shop. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, everything okay?" "No," I said, barely able to breathe. "Call 911. I'm at the lake house." "Get them here now." She didn't hesitate. "Got it." Marissa stood there, frozen. "You're overreacting," she muttered. I didn't respond. I couldn't. 15 minutes later, I heard the sirens. Eli ran outside to flag them down. I heard the crunch of boots on the cabin floor. The paramedics didn't ask questions. They took one look at me and started prepping the stretcher. "Can you feel this?" one of them asked, pressing something against my foot. "No." "Any tingling? Pins and needles?" "No, just fire in my lower back." They strapped me down. I saw Clay out of the corner of my eye, watching from the porch with that same dumb smirk on his face. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't say anything. They wheeled me out while Marissa trailed behind like she was the one being victimized. But I knew deep down this wasn't just about that push. It was everything. Years of being laughed off, shrugged away, ignored. Now my body was done playing along. They rolled me straight into imaging within 30 minutes of getting to the hospital. No delays, no waiting room. The ER doc took one look at me and ordered a CT and MRI before even getting blood drawn. When he came back with the results, he looked pale, like someone had told him bad news. You've got a fractured vertebra, he said, and spinal cord compression. You're lucky you're not paralyzed. I was half conscious from the meds, but that cut through. I blinked hard, forcing myself to stay alert. What does that mean? I asked. It means you're going to need surgery, he said. Soon. If that cord gets any more pressure on it, you will lose function. Maybe permanently. I stared at the ceiling, swallowed dry. Then he said, also, we saw some older injuries, healed fractures, a rib, maybe two, cracked wrist. Do you remember when those happened? I just shook my head. Not exactly. He looked up from the chart. How long have you been falling? I looked him straight in the eye. I haven't been falling. I've been pushed. For years he didn't say anything, just nodded slowly and wrote something down. Marissa showed up later that afternoon, just as the nurse was adjusting my IV drip. I was groggy, throat dry, still flat on my back. The doctor came in behind her, holding the scans. He didn't waste time. This isn't minor, he said. Your husband could have lost bladder control, bowel function, or use of his legs entirely. He needs surgery and extensive rehab. Marissa said nothing, just stared at the image, a black and white shot of my spine, the compression obvious even to someone without a medical degree. The doctor kept going. The impact was significant. This wasn't a bump or a simple strain, still nothing from her. He handed her a paper copy of the scan, then turned to me. We'll admit you overnight and have neuro come in first thing. Do you want to file a report? I nodded. My neck ached from the slight movement, but I didn't care. He left us alone. Marissa stood there a minute longer. I could feel her looking at me, but she didn't say she was sorry. Didn't ask what she could do. Later that night, a nurse helped me sit up just enough to write. I held the clipboard like it weighed 10 pounds. My hands shook the whole time, but I wrote everything, every shove, every joke, every bruise I'd shrugged off to keep the peace. I listed names, dates, locations, as much as I could remember. It filled 2 pages. I asked the nurse to bring it to the front desk and call the sheriff's office. She didn't flinch, just said, "Good," and left the room. Clay never showed up at the hospital, not even a text, not through Marissa, not through her parents. That was fine. I didn't want visitors. I wanted the truth written down. And for the first time in my life, it was. The charges were filed the next day. That same afternoon, Marissa's parents showed up at the hospital, red-faced and buzzing with outrage like someone had just keyed their car. Her dad stood at the foot of my bed, arms crossed, jaw clenched. You're seriously pressing charges? Against your own family? I didn't respond right away. I was sitting upright for the first time since surgery, back braced, painkillers kicking in just enough to let me breathe. He's not my family, I said. Not anymore. Her mom leaned in, voice tight. You're ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? I laughed. Couldn't help it. My whole spine flared up in response, but I didn't care. Done for me? You people never respected me a day in your lives. Marissa wasn't with them. She came later, alone, quiet. She stood in the doorway holding a manila envelope like it was a peace treaty. Clay didn't mean it, she said, her eyes on the floor. He didn't think you'd get that hurt. He meant to humiliate me, I said. He meant to shove me. He meant to make a scene, just like every other time she didn't argue that. She just stepped forward and set the envelope on the tray table beside my bed. What's that? She hesitated. Money to help with the hospital bills, and there's a draft statement inside saying it was an accident. If you sign it, the charges go away. I stared at the envelope for a full minute. Is this really what you're doing? I asked, covering for him. I'm trying to protect my family, she said. From what? The truth? Her face tightened. You're blowing this out of proportion. You watched me suffer for years. And now that I finally said enough, I'm the one wrecking the family? She didn't answer. I pushed the envelope off the tray. It hit the floor with a soft thud. I want a divorce. That got her attention. She looked at me like she hadn't heard me right. You're serious? As a fractured spine, I said. I'm done with this. I'm done with you defending him. She didn't cry, didn't plead, just nodded once, like she'd expected it. That night she packed a bag and left. No goodbye, no hug for Eli, nothing. He stayed with me, slept in a chair next to my hospital bed, curled up under a sweatshirt. The nurse offered him a cot, but he wouldn't leave the room. The next day I got a message through the hospital phone. "We're cutting you off." That was her dad. "Tell Nate we won't be attending the hearing," her mom added. "Let him deal with the consequences of his own choices." I hung up mid-voicemail. They didn't come to the arraignment, didn't show up for the court dates, didn't even send a text to check if I'd survived the surgery. Eli didn't seem to care. I asked him once if he missed them. He shook his head. "You were always the one showing up, Dad." Not them. That meant more than anything I'd heard in years. A few days later, I got a call from the detective assigned to the case. He told me Clay had been served, that he looked surprised. I wasn't. People like Clay always think they're untouchable, especially when the whole damn family lets them be. But that spell was broken, and this time, I had the proof. Clay pled guilty 2 weeks before the trial was set to start. No fight, no plea deal circus. Just a straight admission. They gave him 14 months in county jail and probation after that. No tears, no courtroom drama. I didn't even go to sentencing. Didn't need to. I was home, lying flat in bed with an ice pack on my lower spine when the news came in. The DA left a voicemail. He took the plea. "You won't need to testify, good." I had nothing left to say to him anyway. 2 months into his sentence, a plain white envelope showed up at my shop. No return address, just my name, scrawled across the front in sloppy pen. I knew who it was from before I even opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No apology up top. Just, therapy made me realize how far gone I was. I spent most of my life thinking what I did was normal. Teasing, pushing, putting people in their place. It was never personal. I just thought I was funny, but it was cruel. I know that now. I kept reading, jaw tight. "I blamed you? For marrying Marissa, for not being like me, for not laughing at my jokes. But it wasn't your fault. None of it was. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I've stopped blaming you. That's on me." At the bottom, he'd signed it with his full name like it was a business contract. Then one more line. "They made me feel like I was untouchable. I'm not blaming them." But it didn't help. I sat there for a minute, holding the letter like it was about to catch fire in my hands. Then I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. Not out of rage. I didn't have the energy for that anymore. I just didn't care what he thought he'd figured out in therapy. Didn't care what guilt was eating him now that he was sitting in a cell with no one laughing at his punchlines. I went back to work, sanded down a walnut tabletop, tried to forget the letter. But that night, when Eli went to bed and the shop was dark, I went out back and dug the letter out of the trash bin. I smoothed it out, wiped off a coffee stain, and stuck it in the folder with all the court papers, medical records, and photos. Not for him, for me. I wasn't holding on to it because I thought he deserved anything. I kept it because I wanted the whole picture, the full ugly story, the damage and the aftermath. The evidence of what it took for the golden boy to finally say the words. It was me. That didn't fix anything. My back was still a mess. I still couldn't feel half my right foot. I still woke up in the middle of the night with shooting pain down my leg. But at least now there was no more pretending, no more playing along. Clay finally saw what he'd done, and he put it in writing. Recovery was hell. The nerve pain didn't just fade, it drilled itself into me. Some nights I couldn't tell if I was freezing or burning from the inside out. My right foot felt like it was asleep for months, and when it woke up, it screamed. PT started slow, first just getting out of bed without blacking out, then walking 5 feet, then 10. The therapist said, "You're doing great," but it didn't feel like greatness. It felt like punishment. I shut the shop down completely. Couldn't lift, couldn't drive, couldn't sit for more than 20 minutes without going numb. Bills piled up. I sold a few pieces I had made years back. The ones I swore I'd never part with. Had to. 6 months later, I reopened. Smaller space. Just me and a helper, a younger guy named Kevin, who knew how to listen more than talk. We did good work, stopped chasing every job, and started focusing on clients who respected time, not just price. Eli stuck with me the whole time. He graduated high school that spring, skipped the party Marissa's mom tried to organize, and spent the weekend helping me hang shelves in the new shop. I couldn't bend yet, so he handled the heavy stuff. Acted like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. He was 18, and more of a man than Clay had ever been. Marissa? We spoke once. Mediation for the divorce. Cold gray conference room with bad coffee, and a lawyer who checked her watch every 10 minutes. She looked across the table and said, "I don't even recognize who you are anymore." I didn't flinch. I just said, "That's because I stopped trying to be who you wanted." She didn't have a comeback, just stared down at her papers and nodded. We didn't talk again. One afternoon, about a year after the injury, a local paper ran a piece on the case. Nothing big, just a short column buried halfway through the B section. Man paralyzed after prank by in-law. It included a quote from the police report, mentioned the pattern of prior injuries, used the word history. I didn't expect much from it, but 2 days later, I got a call from a guy I hadn't heard from since high school. Brian something. Used to play linebacker. Big guy back then. Sounded smaller now. "Hey Nate," he said. "Just wanted to say, I read that article. What you did, speaking up. That took guts." I didn't know what to say, so I just said, "Thanks." An hour later, another call, then another the next day. 3 guys I'd grown up around. All said some version of the same thing. I wish I'd had the balls to speak up when it happened to me. That stuck with me. Turns out Clay had been a golden boy in more places than just his family's backyard. He had been that same pushy, cocky, too rough guy since we were teenagers. Only back then, no one ever told him no, not until me. I didn't reply to those calls with any long speeches. Just said I appreciated it. Truth is, that meant more than any settlement or courtroom win ever could. I started sleeping better after that. Not every night. Pain still flared up, especially when the weather shifted. But I slept knowing I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. I wasn't alone. Every time I stepped into that shop, I felt it. My space. My rules. No more pretending to laugh at someone else's expense. No more taking hits just to keep the peace. Quiet justice isn't loud. It's not a headline. It's waking up and being able to look yourself in the eye. It's the sound of Eli saying, "Shop looks good, Dad," while setting a level on a shelf you can't reach yet. It's a letter filed away, a scar that doesn't need explaining. It's knowing the next time someone calls you too sensitive, you'll know better. 1 year later, I walked to the end of a different dock. Not perfectly, my right leg still dragged a bit, and I used the cane on the gravel path. But I walked. The boards creaked under me as I stepped out toward the lake. The water was calm, no jet skis, no yelling, no crowd, just air, pine and cedar, quiet enough to hear my own breath. I stood there alone, letting the breeze hit my face. No Clay, no Marissa, no sideways looks or loaded comments. Just me and the sound of wind through the trees. I don't have a big family anymore, not by blood anyway. But the people who stuck around, they're the ones who matter. Eli visits every weekend. Sometimes we fish. Sometimes we don't even touch the rods. We just sit on the tailgate, talk about school, his job, what comes next. He's 20 now, smarter than I ever was, steadier too. Nothing like them. He's proud of me. I can tell. I still wake up with pain. Some mornings I have to stretch for 15 minutes just to tie my damn shoes. But I sleep better than I ever did under that roof with people who acted like pain wasn't real unless they felt it themselves. The shop's doing good. Smaller space, fewer clients, but the right ones. I don't hustle for approval anymore. I build what I want, fix what matters. I'm booked out 3 months, and I take weekends off. Never used to do that. In the back office, above the cabinet, I framed one of the MRI images, the one that shows the compression clear as day. Most people wouldn't know what they're looking at. I do. It's a reminder that pain leaves evidence, even when no one wants to see it. Even when they say you're exaggerating, that image shut everybody up.